Welcome to the Semi-Retired Podcast with your host, Richard Bonomo.
And me, Dave Farrant.
Hi, Dave. This week we're talking toys in the attic.
My toys in the attic or your toys in the attic?
Well, I don't want to go into too much detail.
And that wasn't an accusation, by the way. I'm just saying, you know?
Yes, the toys of our childhood.
Yes. The halcyon days of the early to late 60s, let's say, or mid to late 60s, rather.
When toys didn't really make that much noise, not like today's toys that can, tell you off or give you advice.
Well, we didn't need any batteries, as I recall.
Mostly.
No, there was a few, but I don't recall. I mean, the thing I remember most about toys, my first memories of toys, which may shock some younger listeners, is that we were very militarized.
Military.
Militarized. And we were a bunch of militarized six-year-olds. We had plastic army helmets, plastic machine guns, plastic little daggers on web belts, plastic hand grenades that we could throw. They didn't explode, obviously, but we had them. And also lots and lots of army men.
Army men, yes.
You had the army men too?
Oh, yeah, the little green guys, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes they wouldn't stand up, right? Like you'd get army men in a big bag, you'd dump them all out and you'd say, oh, I didn't get any gunners. Or you'd get like a whole bunch of soldiers.
Yeah, that's right.
And their bases sometimes would be like kind of deformed. So this guy's like, he's shooting to the left, he's shooting to the right.
Yeah, not the highest quality control standards on those things, right?
No, exactly.
Yeah. And you had like 5 or 6 poses, right? There was the guy with the rifle over his head. Yeah. Then there was the guy kneeling with his rifle. There was a guy, I guess, throwing a hand grenade.
There was the prone guy, like almost like a sniper. He's got like one leg pulled up to the side, like I call the number 4 when you sleep.
And we called them, it's funny because we come from different parts of the city. We both called them army men, not soldiers. In fact, the word soldier it's like I picked that up later. They were army men.
Yeah, I think they were sold as army men.
Probably sold as army men.
And, for the longest time, I didn't understand what the guy with his gun over his head was doing.
Yes.
And obviously, he's crossing a river or stream or water.
Right.
He's not surrendering.
Oh, I thought he was just brandishing his weapon.
Didn't realize he could shoot it. He was going to club someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right. He's a river crossing dude, eh?
Yeah.
And, just to show how deeply into the culture, or it was my life anyways, the army man permeated. When my brother was born, I was like 4 years old, 1965, and I don't remember the arrival of my brother in the house, but I do remember being dropped off at a neighbor's to kind of, so they could look after me while my mother gave birth, and to keep me quiet, my parents gave me a bag of army men. So that's how my brother entered but I remember that.
You lost not the boob
birth.
And
exactly, yeah. Not the birth, sorry, dude.
Yeah, and I remember the one particular army man had a parachute on him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you would like unfold this kind of parachute, which had been folded for so long that it didn't catch air anymore.
That's right.
And you throw it off the building and he would die a horrible death as he slammed
that was like,
it was like
a special kind of army man, right?
Yeah,
it was like a little red and white plastic thing, right? With strings attached to him or something like that.
For some reason, I picture the parachute as a bag of, you remember those little candies called gold nuggets?
Yeah.
They used to come in a little pouch
I do, actually,
with like gold writing on it. That's what I always picture the parachute as. It's probably my memory that's playing tricks on me.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I mean, and that segues into the topic of kites, another big toy for us back in the day, right? The Batman. Remember the Batman kites? And there was they like had a big face on it that looked like Batman, and you could fly it, sort of thing. And what we tried to do, ambitious little buggers that we were, was to find a way to attach our parachute army man, paratrooper, to a kite and somehow get him up high in the air and then release him so that he would float, successfully, softly to
gracefully.
The ground. Yeah, gracefully to the ground. I don't recall that it ever worked because we had trouble with the release mechanism, but the idea was, the concept was there.
Did you discover electricity while doing this?
So probably somewhere along the way, yeah, exactly, yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, very, very military. You think of all the toys, especially I remember going to Wildwood back in the 70s. And
New Jersey, right? New Jersey?
Yeah, exactly. And there was neighborhood kids there, and we all got to play with the neighborhood kids. And I remember when we played Army, right? Shall we play Army, right? Yeah. So you would grab your plastic guns or whatever, you'd pretend you'd grab like a broom handle and that would be your gun. So I remember going there and he was very much, okay, you be the Japs, I'll be the Americans. And I remember going, Japs.
Japs.
What are you talking about? We're fighting the Germans. for me growing up, I always felt like Germany was the enemy in World War II. The Japanese were there, but for the Americans, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, right? So they had like this visceral hatred of Japan, even back in this would be early 70s.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it would be more their enemy than ours, right? Because I was the same way. For me, it was all about the Germans, as the bad guys,
Yeah.
And did you read comics like Army Men comics, like Sergeant Rock and all these things?
No.
Yeah, we had that too. I mean, it was everywhere. And so the main character was a guy called Sergeant Rock, so obviously a sensitive guy.
That was also his adult entertainment name, right?
yeah. Fair point. Yeah,
different toy in the attic.
A guy not in touch with his feminine side. So so like wherever we looked, it was like military, and this also transitioned into let's face it, firecrackers. Right?
Yeah.
Firecrackers. You had those, right?
Yeah. Firecrackers, stink bombs.
Yes.
There was a dépanneur, a convenience store near the house that specifically had those items. You could go in there. And even as a kid, they would no problem. They would sell you the firecrackers, right? They came on a little string of 5, I think, and they were knotted together.
They were knotted together.
Like a little bundle like grapes.
And then there was the bigger, I remember there was the bigger packet that then they're all kind of like lined up together. But we just go in and we're talking, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
You got a few cents together somehow. And you'd buy your firecrackers and take them. And, we used to do creative things like I can recall us working out that we would take an apple and stuff a bunch of firecrackers into it. So we had an apple studded with explosives, small explosives regardless. Yeah. Try to light them all at the same time.
They're hard to peel.
Oh, they're hard to peel. Exactly. Yeah. And then throw them at the other guys, at the enemy. At the enemy. Yeah.
At the enemy. Yeah, I remember the stink bombs. We would take the stink bombs and they were like little glass vials, little glass bottles. And you'd snap the top off and you could pour it out, or you could just throw it and it was thin glass, so it would shatter. So we'd go to an apartment building, ring all the doorbells, open the door. When the door would open, we'd whip open the door and we'd throw like stink bombs into the stairwell.
How clever were we, eh?
What a bunch of stinkers we were.
Yeah, it was just stinkers, yeah. You've reminded me the little glass vials.
Yeah.
And we would get those at the convenience store, right?
Yeah, and again, individually or in packs of 5, man, I wish I could remember. And they stank like rotten eggs. It was some sort of sulfur.
Hydrogen sulfide solution or something.
I remember it was kind of yellowish, the liquid.
Yeah, that's right. I remember it being yellowish, for sure. Yeah, that was a big deal. Explosives, the other thing I can recall doing, maybe we were deviant in some way, is finding out somewhere in some kind of science book, and this is in like late elementary school, so like 8, 9, 10 years old, whatever, the basic formula for gunpowder. And it was
match heads.
Saltpeter, right? Which was potassium nitrate, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's right.
Possibly.
Sulfur and charcoal. And, being entrepreneurial, little militarists, so we went down to the pharmacy and you could buy potassium nitrate. I don't know why. So we bought like a sort of a plastic container of it. We bought some sulfur. Why they were selling these things, I don't know. And we had charcoal for my dad's barbecue. And so we tried to mix all this together and put it in a test tube, and actually in the correct proportions, so we thought, and then heat it up with a match or a lighter. And actually, it actually blew up and actually blew.
It did, yeah?
Yeah, blew, like in somebody's hand. I mean, I'm not talking something major you would have heard like in the next block, but it blew up.
Enough that as a kid is like, wow.
Yeah, we're like, whoa, we've done it. Yeah.
We invented bang.
Yeah. It was like Kirk in that episode with the Gorn. Remember where the alien is attacking Kirk and he has to make gunpowder? I know that's a tangent, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Saltpeter is a common food preservative and additive fertilizer, oxidizer for fireworks and rockets. And it is potassium nitrate.
There you go, potassium nitrate, yeah. Why do I remember stuff like that? Yeah.
But isn't saltpeter, didn't they also put saltpeter in the soldiers' food in the army? I had heard this because it curbs the libido.
Yeah, that's right. It represses certain appetites. Yeah, that's right, eh? Yeah, who came up with that?
I don't know. And you have to wonder, this is a thing, right? I mean, soldiers typically on duty, not on duty, but when they're out, tend to engage in not very nice activities often in enemy villages.
Looking for recreation. Yeah, right. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I guess this was a way to try to get around that.
Yeah.
So who was the king of the explosive in our days? Would have been our friend G.I. Joe.
G.I. Joe. Yeah, I'm glad you remember G.I. Joe.
The greatest of all action figures for boys, right?
Yes, absolutely. When was do you remember your first G.I. Joe?
Yeah, I only remember ever having one G.I. Joe, and it's the guy with the action hair. He had, for some reason, I'm thinking he was a ginger.
Oh, the real hair.
Yeah,
no, but there was a ginger.
Yeah, I think I got the ginger.
Yeah,
and he had a little bit of a beard, quite nicely trimmed, I would say, for the 70s.
It was like a little fuzz glued onto his face. When you think about it, it's quite an innovative thing to do. Yeah. And I guess it was reflecting like the whole kind of long hair, bearded trend of the late 60s. They were trying to make Joe seem a little more kind of the times, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, kind of resembling the lead singer of Steppenwolf or something. Probably not. But yeah.
But you're supposed to be a soldier, right? Soldiers typically don't have beards, right? You have to be clean shaven in the army.
That's right. I had the same G.I. Joe, the bearded G.I. Joe. This particular Christmas, my brother and I both got our Joes, and we're down there and we're opening our gifts. And it's, you know, my brother's a few years younger than I am, so didn't notice what I was about to do, which I'm now going to describe. Was I noticed that my G.I. Joe's beard was sort of scraggly on one side. It wasn't well formed. I didn't like that. It bothered my emerging sense of aesthetics, I guess. So when he wasn't looking, because I noticed that his G.I. Joe had a perfect beard, I swapped the two. And if you're finding this out 50 plus years later, again, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the one accessory that they didn't sell with G.I. Joe was a razor.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you could have trimmed that. It could have been part of the fun.
Yeah.
The big accessory for G.I. Joe was obviously like they had the weapons and guns and hats and whatever, but it was the clothes, right? You could buy like, I remember they had like the typical sailor outfit, right? With the baggy pants and the little hat and the shirt.
Yeah.
And my G.I. Joe had, I think, one set of clothes. I mean, we didn't
me too.
We didn't have like multiples. And I remember I wanted him to have shorts. It was hot. I can still picture this.
He's on R&R, right? Yeah.
Exactly. He's on R&R. He's got these long pants. I'm like, he needs some shorts. And so I grabbed one of the pairs of pants and I cut to make a pair of shorts, and I accidentally cut through the crotch and I gave G.I. Joe a skirt.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Well, as we both know, he was light in that area. So probably no actual danger posed to his GI genalia or whatever it was called. You know?
Yeah, I wonder if the saltpeter into the food was a way to turn soldiers into the anatomically incorrect GI Joe who had no genitals.
That sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Just like our aliens.
Yeah.
GI Joe was a blast. You had some. I think didn't you have like them with the chopping motion? If you pushed in their back, the arm would chop down, or is that Karate Men?
Oh, you know
Am I thinking something else?
I think it's something else, but it sounds familiar.
Kung Fu Grip. Does that sound
Kung Fu Grip? Yeah, something. No, G.I. Joe with Kung Fu Grip.
Yeah.
I can. Yeah, that's stuck in my head. That phrase. So you're right.
Yeah, his hand was permanently caught in an inappropriate.
Here we go again.
Well, they say if you do it, your hand will stay that way.
Right.
And I guess it did for G.I. Joe.
You have to censor this. Did you have Captain Action? Does that say anything to you?
No.
Okay, that's another one. It's like, no, it was nowhere near as popular.
It was an action figure?
It was an action figure, yeah.
Okay.
Captain Action, of course, sort of thing, right? I seem to recall seeing him advertised on U.S. television when we first got one of those converters and we could watch channels 3 and 5, and it was like Captain Action. There was a whole song going on, and I don't understand what his thing was. He had like a captain's hat and kind of a skin tight suit. You know, I mean, this is years before the Village People, but you have to wonder.
Was it?
Yeah, yeah.
So G.I. Joe was obviously a guy. The Barbie had her Ken.
Oh,
Did G.I. Joe have a G.I. Jane, or is that something that came much later? I don't remember a G.I. Jane action figure in our days. I don't even know if it exists.
I don't either. I certainly remember that the girls around the block had their Barbies.
Yeah.
I think G.I. Jane was the movie that came along later, right?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it was, no, I don't think we had that, but...
with Demi Moore.
With Demi Moore, that's right, yeah. Yeah, no, the G.I. Joes were... that was a key toy from that period. I mean, you had your little army men like we talked about, which were 3 inches tall, 2 inches tall, and then Joe, a full 12.
Yeah, that's right. And I have like a fleeting memory of G.I. Joe, and then nothing. It's gone.
Yeah, he was there and gone. I think it was, again, I think you play with those kind of action figures, I think that's over by the time you're 9 or something like that, and you move on, right?
Yeah.
To cap guns, maybe.
Cap guns, that's right. The guns that you would load, this little roll of red paper.
Yes.
It was about 1/4 inch wide, maybe half inch wide.
Yeah.
It had like spaced every, maybe inch or so, you had like a dot.
You had a little pocket of gunpowder, right?
Yeah, gunpowder, exactly. Yeah. You would load it into your cap gun, and then if you were lucky, when you pulled the trigger, it would advance the roll to the proper place. The hammer would strike the little pop, and it would go pow.
Yeah.
And it would sound, half the time it missed. It didn't load properly, especially if you had a cheaper one.
Yeah.
And so you would have to like do it by hand and ram the hammer back on it there.
And do you remember taking the little tape and like striking it?
Yeah, striking with a nail or something.
It's amazing how these ideas are universal. You know, it's like not like we had the internet, and yet, you know, here we are living miles and miles apart, certainly in the same part of the world, but we've come up with the same, you know, strange ideas.
No, I never set one of those on fire. Did you? I can imagine it would pop. But I don't know. Figured that would have been a blast as a kid.
Yeah, maybe. No, I mean, we would sometimes set the entire pack of firecrackers on fire, although that was an expensive proposition because, you know, you had to buy, like, say, 50, and then you just light the fuse at the end and it would all go off. But, yeah, that was for special occasions.
Special occasions, terrorizing the neighborhood, holidays. Yeah, so from explosives, we go into, from pop guns, we go to BB guns, 22s. I lusted after a BB gun when I was a kid. I always wanted one.
Yeah.
My parents refused to buy us BB guns. Nobody had them really except for one kid. And he had a very realistic looking gun. It was wood. Back then it was wood, not all plastic. And it was a breakdown model. So you basically folded it in half, and where the barrel met the body, it would, you know, hinge out.
Yeah.
You'd put a pellet in.
Yeah.
And as you folded it in half, it would crank compressed air into the cylinder. You'd close it and you could take one shot. And then repeat, lather, rinse, repeat. If you want, every time you wanted to take a shot, you had to open the gun up, crank it, put a pellet. And we say BB because we often use the pellets.
Yeah, I didn't have that type of pellet gun. I remember people around the block who did. I got one that had sort of a little magazine of 5 pellets.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I didn't like it because I thought the gun looked wimpy. Like, I thought the other ones looked more dangerous, and this looked like kind of a, you know, like a girl's gun at the time. Yeah. So I was, like, less enthused about it, you know?
Yeah, I remember that. My friend had a, I guess what was supposed to be like a .357 revolver.
Right.
And you could load BBs or pellets into it, and there was a thing, I think there was a chamber you would put BBs, or behind the cylinder you could push little BB, you'd rotate the cylinder and you would push the pellets in. Right. And then it used compressed air capsules that you would stick into the bottom. Oh, yeah. And then it would fire and you would get, like, I don't know, 100 shots or whatever on a bottle of compressed gas. It was probably CO2. I'm saying air. It might have been CO2. It was probably carbon dioxide.
I never had one of those, but somebody I knew.
And that one was well built. I mean, as a kid, you're like, wow, this feels like a real gun. Right. It had weight. It was metal, and you loaded bullets into it, you know, in the same kind of way, you know, still the back, not exactly like you load a real gun. And it fired quite it made a nice sound when it went, and you didn't have to crank it, right? It's just like as fast as you could pull the trigger, it would fire till the last few shots would be as it ran out of gas.
Well, yeah, we had fun with these things. I know it sounds scandalous probably, but nobody ever got hurt, and we in fact would hunt each other in the woods.
Early Hunger Games.
During the winter, early Hunger Games with snowsuits on. The idea was to shoot the other person, and the kind of general rule was, you know, not above the waist. You would aim for the legs and the buttocks, say, sort of thing, and try to score a hit. Where we got these, I guess that's the way we thought, you know? Is it very militarized at this point?
So my friend who had the rifle,
came
to see me one day, and he's like, I want you to shoot me. I'm like, what do you mean shoot me? He goes, I want to see if it hurts. I'm like, okay.
Testing the limits here.
Testing the limits. So he walked 20 paces away, let's say. And I said, so where do you want me to shoot you? And he turned around and he lifted up his shirt and he said, here, in his lower back.
No way.
Yeah, like lower back, like right where your kidneys would be.
But on the skin.
On the skin. Yeah, he lifted up his shirt. Wow. So I took aim, fired, and he let out a freaking yelp, not realizing that the lower back is quite sensitive to getting shot. It didn't pierce the skin or anything, but now he knew how much it hurt. Now, the thing is, I'm not sure if he wanted to discover how much it hurt so that it would give him empathy not to shoot someone, or that hurts. Now I can shoot the little fuckers.
Yeah.
And I know how much I'm going to hurt them. He never shot anybody, as far as I know, but I always wondered what the real reasoning behind knowing the paint.
Is he incarcerated somewhere now?
No. None of that.
You made me think, before we move on, you made me think of a last firecracker story. Do you remember the tiny firecrackers? They were just like little teeny, we called them not lady fingers, those are the big ones, they're these little teeny tiny ones. And you can actually, we would do this, hold one in between your two fingers and light it, and it would go off, and you just feel sort of and because we were horrible little thugs at certain times, there was a kid who moved in up the road. We all thought was kind of weird. He was like kind of sickly looking and all that. And at one point, we caught him and dropped a little teeny firecracker into his pants.
Oh my God.
Huh?
Oh boy!
I hope you're not out there now. I mean,
you just triggered a memory for him.
You don't want to get that call, eh?
Yeah, exactly. The things we did with those. Like I know you had later on. You had 22s, right?
Because we were. I know you grew up in the city. I grew up on the outskirts of suburbia on the North Shore, and so it was not unusual for guys in their teens to have 22 caliber rifles. A couple of my buddies had them. And my parents got me one for Christmas this particular year. Came with a little note that said, "Merry Christmas from Santa Bang Bang Claus." I remember that to this day. And so I have my 22 caliber rifle, and it was quite a weapon when I look back on it, because you could put up to, depending on the type of ammunition you purchase, you could put up to 10 rounds in this tube that ran along below the actual barrel, and then you could basically chick shoot.
Was it a bolt action, lever action?
Yeah, it was lever action. Yeah, lever action.
Okay.
And then with my paper route money, I managed to buy myself a scope for it. I remember that was $5. It was a big deal sort of thing. I put a scope on it. Don't know why. We never shot at animals. In my case, I've never aimed at a living thing. We used to shoot at targets, and we just liked having the gun. And we were taught, gun safety to some extent. My father would, don't walk with it loaded, keep it pointed at the ground, and we would just go wander up through the fields armed, walking past the neighbors. "Oh, hi, Mrs. Miller," and "Hi, boys, have a good day." I thought to myself, if I saw 3 12, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds walking up my street with long guns over their shoulders, I'd call the cops.
Yeah.
And yet this was normal for us, and no one got hurt, I have to say. No one got
Now, did you walk with it over your head like the army man?
No.
So I only got my own BB gun much later in life. I'm probably somewhere in my 20s, whatever. On a lark, a friend and I were sitting around, and the topic came up. I don't know how it came up. And he's like, they have them at Canadian Tire. So we pulled out the Canadian Tire catalog, and we each picked a rifle, and he ran off to buy the two guns. So he got this model that
like a pump?
Yeah, a pump,
cool.
a pump one.
Cool.
And the more you pumped it, the more powerful it got. Okay. Right? So you could do one pump and it. Or you could do multiple pumps. At a certain point, it got too hard because the chamber would be too compressed, and then you would get more power. And mine was a simple. Oh my God, I can't even remember what mine was, but it was not a pump. But you could load like a bunch of BBs in a chamber or a few pellets. I forget.
Okay.
I forget.
Yeah.
And so we each got little scopes for them, and we would do target practice. So we did it in the basement of the store, the dépanneur we were working at the time, or we did it at my house. So at my parents' old house, there was a workshop off to the side, and in there we would just sit up and we would just take a chair, and we're like, okay, and we'd set up targets at the end, and not necessarily paper. Sometimes they were paper targets. Sometimes we ran out of paper targets. So we would set up a series of bolts or metal cans.
Yeah.
And we shoot these things, and we'd keep score, like who was the better marksman. And eventually I got bored with just a tink, tink, tink. So I said, we're going to up the game a little bit. So there was a bachelor apartment in the house, and I set up bottles of water hanging off okay, so imagine you're in a bachelor apartment, you're in the living room. Across from you is the little kitchenette.
Yeah.
So there's the kitchen counters in front of you, and I'm tying plastic bottles like Javel bottles or 2 liter pop bottles filled with water, and then we're swinging them. They're hanging from the doorknobs, so they're swinging roughly where the backsplash would be, and we're shooting these things.
Moving targets. What a great idea.
And the idea is, you not only do you have to hit a moving target, you also have to penetrate it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to hit it center. You hit off the side, the pellet's going to fly off. Not very bright when you think about water everywhere, all over the place, cleaning it up. And years later, my dad was renovating the place because it was outdated, and we were going to turn it into the playroom or whatever. And I remember being there, and the backsplash had this crazy 1970s vinyl wallpaper that was just a madness of flowers.
Of course.
Small flowers.
Of course.
So when my dad started pulling off the wallpaper, the wall was riddled with pellets. Like, riddled with pellets.
Yeah.
And I remember going, holy crap, that's a lot of pellets. I really missed a lot. I remember my dad going, God damn it, what the hell is this? I'm like, yeah, I didn't feel a little tired. Right, you're going to take it. And I had to spend the afternoon pulling the pellets out of the wall, and you had to replaster the entire wall.
Ah, God, the joys of childhood.
The joys of childhood, exactly. And luckily, I never shot anyone except for that one guy who asked to be shot. But it was for me, it was a target thing. I like the idea of the marksmanship.
Me too.
Especially moving targets. I thought it was fascinating to try to, leading them and, wind. I didn't have one of those crazy wind meters there like you see in the sniper movies.
Yeah, that was just the idea of being a good shot. And, I remember oiling the 22 and had like a little kit. It's just fun, just fun. No one got hurt.
Exactly. The idea was never to go out and...
Do you know we've been talking for almost half an hour and we've only covered military explosive firearms type toys? No one's going to believe this.
No one's going to believe this, yeah. So from that, I guess my other really memory that sticks in my head for Christmas is Hot Wheels.
Oh, nice. Good
Wheels.
one, yeah.
Yeah, I remember the same basement apartment that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We had, for some reason, we had Christmas down in that apartment that year. Maybe my dad had just built the basement apartment and there was a way to inaugurate whatever. And I remember getting a Hot Wheels kit with the track and this clamp that you would clamp to like a table.
Oh, the clamp.
And then you would stick your Hot Wheels track would slide into it, and then so that it would give you like you'd go down the hill and then
I remember
onto
the
your
clamp.
track
and
onto a loop-de-loop.
A loop-de-loop.
Yeah.
You said the track was orange, right?
Yeah, orange, yeah.
Was the clamp purple?
Possibly. I don't remember what color the track
It's like
was
just vague. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it had that kind of like groove on top that the track would slide on.
Yeah,
It's the same kind of groove that the connectors for the track, which were basically plastic tapered at the end that you would slide between the two ends of tracks.
Right? Like a tongue.
Yeah, exactly. It had that, and you would slide it onto there.
Wow, that's a memory. Yeah, I had, I remember one particular Hot Wheel I had, because they had names, I think, which was called the Beatnik Bandit.
Oh, yeah.
It was purple. It had like a bubble canopy on it. I guess it was supposed to look, kind of super modern and late 60s, Beatnik, whatever, the Bandit. Yeah. I didn't have a lot of Hot Wheels, but I had that one. Yeah. And then one Christmas, we got, my brother and I, when I say we got the Hot Wheels Mean Mountain motorcycle set or something. So these were Hot Wheel motorcycles, and you had kind of a plastic mountain, and the tracks would run off of it, and you could put two bikes at the top. Then you would hit a button, and the barriers would drop, and your two bikes would roll. That was a whole Hot Wheels thing too.
And then everybody would argue that my button doesn't work as well. You're getting we're going to switch sides. Yeah. I have memories of going to my yard when I was growing up was I lived in the city. Right in the middle of the city. And our yard, most people had like a grass yard or whatever. My yard was asphalt.
Really?
Yeah. My dad had paved the whole yard, and then he had dug out a circle, probably about 3 feet, maybe 4 feet across. Yeah. And in there, he planted a maple tree. Oh. So that was our yard, asphalt and a maple tree. And a swing set.
Very minimalist.
Very minimal.
For the right word.
No grass to cut. But my friend who lived down the road, he had a long grass yard. And where we would actually play baseball in the yard.
Oh, neat.
And we'd have bases. I mean, the yard, when you think about it now, was maybe 30 feet long and 12 feet wide at the most. Yeah. Yet we could have an entire baseball game in there. But we would go there because he had grass, and because, we had played around in it, there was like little paths and stuff. So we could set up entire villages, and we'd be like 4, 5, 6 kids, each have our own town in the grass. And then we'd go for visits. Like you'd take your car, your caravan of cars through the grass, through the paths, and you'd go visit your friend.
Oh, what fun, eh?
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing. And no houses, nothing, just cars. Just little cars. And we could spend an entire day there.
We just seemed to have oodles of free time. And nobody really... looking out and saying, where are you? What are you doing? You have to be home. We would go all day up in the boonies in our case. And the only thing I can recall was be home when the streetlights come on. That was what we had to look for. That was the signal. And that was a dust sort of thing.
You didn't have to come home for lunch?
Yes, but I can recall enough times putting a sandwich in like a little backpack and putting a lunch in the back there. Maybe there was a little thing of water or milk or something. And that was it for the day. Just gone, man.
Yeah, pre-juice box.
Pre-juice boxes, yeah.
But I remember in our lane, because we had lanes where I was growing up, the kids would all go out, and at lunchtime and in supper time, and then at curfew, right? Like when you had to come home for bedtime, the moms would come out onto the balcony and like a series of elegant
Freudian slip.
lady roosters. And you'd hear, Danny, Richard, all the moms would call out the names. In my case, most of them were in French, but they would call out the names and you knew that was your time. And if they had to call twice, you were in trouble. So you would hear the call and you say, oh, supper's ready. I'll see you guys later.
Right.
And go out. And then as soon as you wolfed down the supper, boof, you were out again, right? Till you got the next call.
Yeah, you dredged up. I can recall that now that wanted to eat as fast as possible, so we could just go back out and just get back into whatever we were doing, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was playing a game of pickup baseball or something, because we did play not a toy thing, but we did play sports. From everything from ball hockey in the street to pick up baseball and or just hitting balls and catching them and all that stuff, That was
a big part of our life. I mean, growing up even as a teenager into our early 20s, I mean, that was a big thing was sports. We played baseball, hockey, soccer, not as much, but baseball, hockey, and football we played regularly. And some weekends, I remember in the summer playing baseball, like 2-3 games on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday playing 2-3 games of football. Yeah. Always against mostly the same guys. Yeah. We would just get together, we'd hang out, and it was my job to make the calls to organize everybody. And I'd call it, you come, rounding up enough guys to go play.
No Facebook page at that point?
No Facebook page. No phones. Well, just phones. Me with all my phone numbers in my head.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And for me to try and remember anybody's phone number right now, I don't think I can anymore. But back then, you could carry 25, 30 numbers in your head. And you would know
numbers
all
in my head.
Things.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I didn't have a phone book, and I'd say, I got to call James, I got to call Brian, I got to call Patrick, I got to call Richard, I got to call whoever. Yeah. The numbers were just in my head, and I was just, on a rotary phone.
Yeah, on a rotary phone, yeah. And of course, all this was due to the fact that the moms weren't working, right? I mean, that there was moms in all the houses, as to your point, calling. I mean, we were surrounded by, guardians in a sense. They maybe weren't looking at us or looking, but they were all the houses were occupied. In fact, I remember on our block, there was only one of the gang who his mother worked. And I can still recall this feeling of like, what a weird concept that was. And then when he came home, he had to go somewhere else. We call him a latchkey kid now, sort of thing. And he'd have to be for an hour or two and then when his mom came home, he couldn't get it into my head. My mom went back to work some years later. But strange thought at the time.
No, it's true. No, all the moms were home. I don't remember. I mean, my older brother will probably tell me I'm wrong, and he'll remember better than I will. But I don't remember any mom working back then. I mean, my mom had little jobs so often. My one of my uncles had a store, so at lunchtimes she would go in and work there sometimes during the day when we were in school. But the summers, the moms were all home.
That's right. Making Kool-Aid, right?
Making Kool-Aid. For us, it was popsicles. My mom would surprise us with popsicles, and Kool-Aid was a big thing. Yeah. It's a wonder we're not all diabetic.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. So from the outside, we talked a bit about sports. There's the inside toys. You've got your Slinkies.
The Slinky.
Yeah. Slinky was a disappointment to me. I mean, you see the commercials, a Slinky. It's a fun and wonderful toy.
Yeah, right.
And you saw them doing all kinds of things. It would go down the stairs.
It would, it was alive, right?
It was alive. I tried to go down 2 stairs, roll over, and then fall down the stairs. I never got that thing to work properly.
Yeah.
And then you'd store your Slinky improperly in the toy box, and it would get all tangled into it. And forget it. Once that happened, even if you tried as gingerly as possible to take it apart, thing was ruined.
Yeah, I think it was a big marketing ripoff, because I recall having one too, but how long could you play with that for?
Minutes.
30 seconds? And then you were done. You're like, where's the army men?
I had a cousin who had the toy that I always wanted, and I never had the Light Bright.
Oh, the Light Bright.
Oh, the Light Bright, yeah.
I didn't have that either. No.
It was this cool it looked like an old style TV with a black grid with holes in it, and you'd flick a switch and light would come on behind, and you would make pictures with colored pegs, right? It was fascinating. It was,
Yeah, I can still hear the song for that Light Bright, making things with light.
Yeah.
All these songs,
exactly.
Right? Yeah, we didn't have that either. I think that somebody that we used to visit, my parents used to visit, their kids had one, and we were always kind of hyped up that we would go there and we could play with it. That needed batteries to that earlier point. So I guess that was the
batteries, or did it plug into the wall?
Maybe plugged in.
Maybe plugged in. Yeah. And you would have the sheets with the patterns on them that you could.
Right.
So it would tell you, put blue lights here, and because the pegs were colored. That's right. The light behind it was white.
Yeah.
The grid was black, and the pegs would be different colors.
That's exactly.
And you would stick them in, and you would make creations. Not unlike our friend Etch-a-Sketch.
Oh, the Etch-a-Sketch. God, I love the Etch-a-Sketch. Yeah.
No colors, no batteries.
Yeah.
You wanted gray and gray, we got it.
Gray and gray, yes. Monochrome. Yeah. That's it. It was like iron filings or something, right?
Yeah.
They were inside the case. And you had these two styluses that you adjusted with these knobs, and you made a very we could make like a robot, very squarish looking stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. One knob controlled the horizontal, one
Yeah.
knob controlled the vertical. Isn't that a line from like Dr. Demento?
I think it might be.
We control the horizontal, we control the vertical. So if you got really good at it and you turned both knobs at the same time, you could make a curve. And so there was a whole industry about later on, I think,
Right.
an industry of people who would create artwork, very, very detailed artwork. And the thing is, it was continuous line. So if it's not like you could say, "Oh, I'll move the cursor here." No, it was mechanical. So you had to think in a continuous line. I'm making a box, so I got to start here, 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 here.
And no erasing, right?
No erase. Well,
yeah.
global erasing.
Global erasing, shake, yeah.
You know, it always makes me wonder your iPhone sometimes. You ever shake your iPhone and it says shake? There's a shake to undo feature built into the phones.
Oh, really?
And sometimes if you shake your phone, it'll say, "You sure you want to undo?" And I'm like, it's an Etch-a-Sketch.
Yeah, right. I didn't know that.
Except it's only the last action.
Gonna have to try that with my iPhone.
Yeah.
No, that was a great toy.
Yeah, and I know that there was even people who were making really detailed artwork, and then you could somehow take the Etch-a-Sketch apart and then spray something on the back to seal it, so that you would seal the artwork. And it was Etch-a-Sketch, and then people would sell it on like Etsy or something.
Like it was like an early NFT sort of thing.
Exactly, an early NFT. Yeah. Yeah, so Battleship, the early laptop, right? It looked like a little laptop. You would open it up. And again, like Lightbright, had two grids, one on the bottom, one on the top, with letters and numbers.
Yeah.
And you would place your ships, which had pegs and a number of holes on them. You would you would place them on the grid. And then the other person would try to guess A4.
Right.
Miss. And then the person would put like a little white peg in their ocean to show that there's nothing. And then you say like, B7, like hit. So you go, if they hit you, you would put a little red peg on your ship, and they would put a red peg on their map if you want. Yeah. And you try to guess till you can sink the battleship. Then there was the famous, "You sunk my battleship." Yeah.
It was like a militarized form of bingo, I guess, really, when you think about it. There we go again.
A lot of military stuff. You had also artsy toys, right? Like Etch-a-Sketch, think of it was a kind of a drawing thing. And you had your friend Spirograph.
Spirograph. Oh, God, I love the Spirograph. Yeah.
You know, it's funny. We were talking about Spirograph, and I went to that little antique store in the plaza.
Yeah.
And I swear, Dave, they had an entire section. It was all toys.
No.
They have a Spirograph.
They do?
They have a Spirograph.
Yeah.
They had a whole bunch of these toys we had discussed earlier on.
Yeah, that was like for people who never experienced the Spirograph. So again, it's a drawing toy. There was like a plastic frame that had teeth, like gear, like think of gears, the teeth, all around the inside edge of it. And then what you got with your Spirograph was a number of clear plastic gears that you could kind of link together in the way gears do. And then there was holes in the, if I'm describing this well, holes in the rim of the gears into which you would place your pen. And then as you rolled around inside the template, it would create these geometric shapes, right?
Yeah.
I think. Different colored pens and all that stuff.
Yeah, different colored pens, different sizes of outer gear, inner gear, the different hole patterns also would produce like this crazy art. And you would see this on TV, and it looked like the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And I remember my brother had a kit, and we had to be very careful with it. And I remember trying it out. And unless you really read the instructions, you would produce crap, essentially.
Yeah.
Minutes of fun.
Yeah. I don't think any of it was really, again, he probably got over it reasonably quickly.
Yeah.
It winds up looking like a bunch of kind of concentric or like, ovals and things. And they're all.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of fun. It's like watching a Mandelbrot fractal happen. You're like, okay, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But after a while, you're like, okay.
Yeah. Move on. Yeah, for sure.
So that's the Spirograph I remember having, and the idea was using the colored pens to give you those patterns.
Yeah, that would seem to last a couple of years. I feel like I had a couple of different Spirographs. Like maybe there was a more advanced one or something like that. I don't know, but that seemed to be around for a while, or maybe we just liked it. I don't know.
I also remember Risk, our friend Risk. Again, where are we with the military games?
I think we were off into art for like 4 minutes, and now we're back to like World Conquest.
I wonder why we're such a militarized society.
What happened?
Risk, Dave.
The game of World Conquest,
yes,
right?
World conquest, world domination.
World domination maybe is it. World domination, yeah.
And for those of you who've ever watched Seinfeld, you can see Newman and Kramer having an epic battle of Risk that goes on for a long time and ends on the subway.
That's right. And nobody wants to leave the other guy alone with the Risk board because he's afraid he's going to change the pieces, right?
Well, it was one of those things. If you're playing with friends and you had to go to the bathroom, like, we're all going to the bathroom. I don't trust you, little bastards.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's fun. I still, again, it's funny how the stuff drives into your brain. I can still see the continents. I can remember the strategies. I always wanted to start, for whatever reason, in North America. I liked starting in North America, and I think we got to put our pieces down to start. So I always took North America. Then you started roll, and you got new armies. And you never wanted to be in Australia, right? Because it was just the dead end, right? You couldn't get out.
It's disconnected, right?
It's disconnected, yeah.
So I'm trying to remember, how did you invade Australia or from Australia move out?
Well, you had one. You connected across, I guess, what would be like Indonesia, into Southeast Asia. But that was it. You had one way out or you were screwed, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Some of the countries had multiple paths. Multiple ways in. So you had more borders to defend. So it's true. The thing about Australia is if you could load a bunch of stuff in there and have it as a reserve and then just slowly go out.
I think there was one guy who did that. That was his, because everybody had their thing, or they tried to have their thing. And you're right. There was one guy that said he'd just hole up in the corner there with like 100 armies on Australia. And you'd be like, well, at one point I've got to like roll dice on this guy for like half an hour to wear him down. And who wants to do that? Now we played all literally. Now we're talking 14, 15 years old, all night a couple of times in this guy's basement down the street, where we just, we'd get up at dawn and go home.
Chess was another one that I was playing roughly about the same time, because I think my friend Alan had the Risk game, and he decided at some point we should learn chess. So we had the Hoyle's Rules of Games.
Dude, I had the same thing.
The same with the gray cover?
Well, whatever, but I had the same book.
I was just in a used bookstore right near here, actually. There's a Renaissance on Pierrefonds.
Yeah, okay.
I went in there and they had a Hoyle's Rule, but it wasn't the version I had.
Oh, come on.
So I was like, I was hoping to, relive my childhood through this. And so in there, you had the rules to every game, whether they were card games, dice games. You had rules for roulette, blackjack, all these exotic games that, never played. But I remember that's how we taught ourselves chess. The rules were in there, and then we're like, okay, I kind of get it. So we went to the library and we took out a couple of books on, chess strategy for kids or whatever, and we taught ourselves chess.
Yeah, I tried.
Think about it as another board game.
Oh, yeah. I just don't seem to I don't seem to click with chess. I got a chess game for my birthday in that time frame. Did I ask for it? Did my parents just think that, again, I guess the selection of toys or, whatever was far more limited than today. They thought, it's time for a chess game. It never really took off. I had the Hoyles, like you said, probably read the rules during the pandemic when we were all locked down. I was trying to play chess on my iPad. I thought, maybe, and I just don't get it.
Chess requires a kind of forward-looking. I mean, I can look 2-3 moves ahead, but once you play a guy who can see 7 moves ahead, you're never going to win.
Yeah, I can't do that. Yeah, no,
and that was the thing. Early on when we were playing chess, me and my friend, I was beating him regularly. Yeah. And then his mind kind of clicked into how it worked. And then after that, I couldn't beat him. And then I lost interest. Because we didn't have a giant group of friends who played chess. And so once you're constantly getting beat, you've lost interest, right?
Did you play backgammon?
Yeah, backgammon, but only later on in not as a kid. Not as a kid.
Me neither. I was more like 18, 19, 20, something like that. It's a good game. Yeah,
backgammon is fun. I never played with the doubling dice or whatever.
No.
And that's what I don't like about playing chess on your iPad, on the computer, whatever you're going to play. The electronic versions always force you to double down and bet and do this. I'm like, no, I just want to play chess. I say chess again. Backgammon. I just want to play a straight game of backgammon like we played, and so on. And we would play for nickels. Yeah, I had a friend who was like constantly had to freaking gamble on everything we played. Had to be pennies, nickels, always had to be something.
Yeah, see, I'm not a gambler that way, so I understand. But let's not forget the king of board games, Monopoly.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Snakes and Ladders.
Oh yeah, hold on, yeah.
Or Shoots and Ladders for you British.
That's
folks.
A whole other episode. Eh? Was it Shoots and Ladders?
I think so. I think
it is. You're right. Shoots and Ladders. Yeah. And that's the end of part 1. Next Tuesday, part 2 drops on Semi-Retired. You won't want to miss it.